On March 8, 2014, something happened that shocked the world. A large airplane, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, disappeared while flying from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, to Beijing, China. It was supposed to be an ordinary flight of about 6 hours, carrying people going on business trips, holidays, or returning home. But the flight never arrived in Beijing. It simply vanished, and even today, more than 10 years later, no one knows exactly what happened to it. This mystery has become one of the most puzzling and heartbreaking stories in modern aviation history. Many experts, governments, and ordinary people have searched for answers, but only small pieces of the plane have ever been found. The full story remains unknown. Flight MH370 was operated by Malaysia Airlines, the national airline of Malaysia. The airplane was a Boeing 777-200ER, a large and modern jet that had a good safety record. On that night, 239 people were on board, 227 passengers and 12 crew members. The passengers came from 14 different countries, including Malaysia, China, Indonesia, Australia, India, and France. The majority, 153 passengers, were from China. The pilot was Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a 53-year-old Malaysian with more than 18,000 hours of flying experience. The co-pilot, Farik Abdul Hamid, was 27 and was finishing his training on the Boeing 777. Both were considered skilled and responsible. The flight took off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport at 12:41 a.m. local time. The weather was clear. Everything seemed normal. The plane was expected to land in Beijing around 6:30 a.m. At first, MH370 followed its normal route northeast over the South China Sea. The plane reached its normal cruising altitude of 35,000 feet and continued smoothly. About 38 minutes after takeoff, while it was approaching Vietnamese airspace, air traffic controllers in Kuala Lumpur told the pilots to contact Vietnamese controllers. The co-pilot replied calmly, "Good night, Malaysian 370." Those were the last words ever heard from the plane. Only minutes later, MH370's transponder, the electronic device that helps radar identify an aircraft, was switched off. Then the plane disappeared from civilian radar screens. Normally, if a plane loses communication, air traffic controllers quickly try to contact it. But in this case, confusion and delays slowed down the response. At first, people thought the plane might have crashed somewhere in the South China Sea, where it was last seen. However, later data showed something shocking. After disappearing from radar, MH370 turned sharply west, crossed back over Malaysia, and then turned northwest over the Strait of Malacca. This change of direction was not automatic. Someone must have manually changed the plane's course using the flight computer. Military radar picked up the plane's movements for more than an hour, showing that it continued to fly across Malaysia and out toward the Andaman Sea. After that, it disappeared from all radar. Although the plane could no longer be tracked by radar, it was still communicating silently with a satellite system used by its engine manufacturer. These handshakes, or automatic signals, allowed investigators to calculate the plane's approximate path. Using complex data, experts discovered that after flying northwest, MH370 turned southward and flew for around 6 more hours over the southern Indian Ocean. The last ping from the plane came at 8:19 a.m. Malaysian time, long after it should have landed in Beijing. This information led search teams to believe the plane had run out of fuel and crashed into the southern Indian Ocean, one of the most remote and deepest parts of the planet. The disappearance of MH370 triggered one of the largest search operations in history. At first, 34 aircraft and 40 ships from many countries searched the South China Sea and the Gulf of Thailand. But when new evidence showed the plane had turned west, the search area shifted to the Indian Ocean. Over the next few years, teams from Australia, Malaysia, and China led an underwater search covering more than 120,000 square kilometers, an area nearly the size of Greece. They used advanced sonar, deep-sea drones, and submarines to scan the ocean floor. But despite these massive efforts, no wreckage was found in the main search zone. People around the world followed the news with sadness and confusion. Families of the passengers waited in airports and hotels for days, hoping for updates. The lack of clear answers made their grief even harder. In 2015, over a year after the disappearance, a piece of the airplane called a flaperon was found on Réunion Island, east of Madagascar. Later, more small pieces of debris washed up on beaches in Mozambique, Tanzania, and South Africa. Tests confirmed that they came from MH370. These discoveries proved that the plane had indeed ended up in the southern Indian Ocean, but they still didn't explain why or how it got there. The official investigation was led by the Malaysian government, with help from experts from Australia, the United States, the United Kingdom, and other countries. After years of analysis, they released a final report in 2018. The report confirmed many technical facts: the flight path, the satellite data, and the debris evidence. But it did not provide a clear reason for the disappearance. It stated that the cause could not be determined. The investigators said it was likely that the plane had been manually turned off course, but they couldn't say by whom or why. The report also criticized the first few hours after the plane disappeared, saying there were delays and confusion among air traffic controllers. If action had been taken sooner, it might have helped track the plane more effectively. Since the official report gave no definite answer, many theories have been suggested. Some are based on facts and expert analysis. Others are more speculative. Here are the main ones, explained in simple terms. One popular theory is that Captain Zaharia Ahmad Shah deliberately took the plane off course. Investigators found that he had a flight simulator at home, where he had practiced a similar route over the Indian Ocean. Some people believe he planned the disappearance as an act of suicide. Supporters of this theory say the flight path looks controlled and deliberate, especially the turnbacks. However, there is no solid evidence that Zaharia was depressed or planning anything harmful. His family and friends strongly deny this theory. Another theory is that the plane was hijacked, either by passengers or someone on the crew. In the early days, this seemed possible because 2 passengers were found to be traveling on stolen passports. However, they turned out to be young men from Iran who were trying to migrate to Europe, not terrorists. No group has ever claimed responsibility for hijacking MH370, and no demands were made. Still, some believe it's possible that someone forced the pilots to change course. Some experts believe the plane may have suffered a fire or electrical problem that knocked out communication systems. The pilots might have tried to turn back toward Malaysia for an emergency landing, but were overcome by smoke or lack of oxygen. In this case, the plane would have continued flying on autopilot until it ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean. This theory fits with the idea of the plane flying for hours without any radio contact, but there's no physical evidence to confirm it. Another possible explanation is decompression, when the cabin suddenly loses air pressure. If that happened at high altitude, everyone on board could have lost consciousness quickly. The plane might then have kept flying on autopilot until it ran out of fuel. This theory would also explain why no one sent distress signals or used cell phones. They may have been unconscious. Because MH370's disappearance is so strange, some people believe there may be a cover-up involving governments. Some think the plane might have been accidentally shot down by a military force and then hidden. Others think it was carrying sensitive cargo or passengers involved in secret operations. However, there is no credible proof for these ideas. Most experts see them as conspiracy theories that fill the gap left by missing information. While experts continue to argue about data and theories, the most painful part of the MH370 story is the human tragedy. The families of the 239 people on board have suffered deeply from not knowing what happened. Many relatives have spent years searching for answers, organizing their own private searches, and pressuring governments to keep looking. Some family members still meet every year to remember their loved ones. They say the hardest part is not having closure, no wreckage to bury, no confirmed explanation, and no way to know their final moments. The Malaysian government officially declared the passengers presumed dead in 2015, but many families still hope the truth will one day be found. After the official search ended in 2017, a private company called Ocean Infinity began a new search in 2018 using advanced underwater technology. The company covered another 112,000 square kilometers of the Indian Ocean, but again found nothing. Although the main searches have now stopped, both Ocean Infinity and some researchers say they are willing to search again if new evidence or better data becomes available. In recent years, scientists have continued to study ocean currents, satellite data, and drift patterns of the debris that was found. Some believe a new, smaller search area could be identified more accurately in the future. The loss of MH370 changed aviation forever. After the tragedy, airlines and governments introduced new safety rules to make sure planes can be tracked more effectively. Now, international standards require aircraft to send automatic location updates more frequently, even if other systems fail. Satellites are also used more widely for global aircraft tracking, so another plane can't disappear in the same way. MH370 also reminded the world that modern technology, while advanced, can still fail, and that the vastness of the Earth, especially the oceans, can hide even something as large as a passenger jet. Today, Flight MH370 remains one of the greatest mysteries in aviation history. Despite years of searching, millions of dollars spent, and countless investigations, the main wreckage has never been found. We know roughly where it ended up, somewhere in the southern Indian Ocean. But we still don't know why. For the families of the victims, and for people around the world who followed the story, it remains an unsolved tragedy that continues to raise questions. Until the black boxes, the flight recorders, are recovered, we may never know what truly happened in those final hours. But one thing is certain. The story of Flight MH370 will never be forgotten. It reminds us of the limits of human knowledge, the power of nature, and the pain of unanswered questions.